Huge breaking news. We spoke about this being bans because guess what? Deal agreed with Crystal Palace. It's worth £35 million. He's now been given permission to undergo his medical, which is going to happen in London. But this, Bella, is a huge deal.
We understand Crystal Palace's top scorer, Jean-Philippe Mateta, has told the club he wants to leave this month. The news comes within a week of captain Marc Guéhi moving to Manchester City and manager Oliver Glasner announcing that he will leave in the summer when his contract expires. OK, chief correspondent Kaveh Solhekol joins me now. Kaveh, this is another blow for the club. What's happened? Why doesn't Mateta want to leave? And now?
Well, look, he's got 18 months left on his contract. And just because he wants to leave Crystal Palace, it doesn't mean Crystal Palace are going to sell him. There is no way whatsoever they will let Jean-Philippe Mateta leave the club on the cheap. Now, talks were held about him extending his contract last summer, and those talks did not end with an agreement. And we've known for a long time that he may well be leaving Crystal Palace, but only at the right price. But what is significant today is that he's let it be known that he does actually want to leave. Before today, behind the scenes, we were all aware that he was looking for a move elsewhere. But today is the first time that I think he's been happy for it to be out there in public. So why? What has changed? Well, obviously, the transfer window is only open until February the 2nd. He has got in the France squad. He wants to play for a club who are in the Champions League or a club who are going to be in the Champions League next season. He knows that clubs like Juventus and Aston Villa are interested in signing him. But I go back to what I said at the beginning of my answer. Crystal Palace will not let him leave on the cheap. So a club like Juventus, thinking that they can offer £2 million loan fee to get Crystal Palace's leading striker, are totally wasting their time.
What sort of price should they be coming in at?
Well, I don't have, an official figure, but I would say it needs to start with a 3, and it probably needs to be 35, 40 million pounds. I know last summer clubs were interested in signing him. For instance, he was on the shortlist of Newcastle United. Tottenham made a very, very late bid to try and sign him before they signed Kolo Muani on loan. And I believe the figure that Tottenham were quoted was around 40 million pounds. Now, I think a lot of clubs will look at that and say that is too much for a player who's going to be 29, if he's not already 29. So he's not going to have that much resale value. But what he wants is to be in the France World Cup squad. You listen to what Crystal Palace fans say, and they say since he got in the France World Cup squad in the autumn international breaks, it appears that he hasn't been playing as well for Palace as he was before. He hasn't been scoring regularly, especially from open play. So they kind of feel something's changed. He wants out. If he wants out, fine. But let's make sure we get what he's worth, and let's make sure we sign an adequate replacement.
Yeah, he's 28 at the moment, but he's going to be 29 in June, so not long. No, look, we saw what happened with Oliver Glasner hitting out with the news that Marc Guéhi was going. Criticised that decision, didn't he? There was talk that he might leave now rather than in the summer. So what effect could this possibly have on his short-term future?
Look, I think Oliver Glasner knows what's going on. If we've known for months and months that Jean-Philippe Mateta effectively wanted to leave Crystal Palace, obviously the manager knows as well. But I hear what you're saying in your question. Eze's gone, Guéhi's gone. The manager himself has said he's going. He was unhappy about the timing of Guéhi's departure. For instance, how would he feel if Jean-Philippe Mateta was sold hours before Palace are playing Chelsea this weekend? I don't think he would be happy, but I think his unhappiness would be kept inside the building, because obviously Crystal Palace were very, very unhappy with what he said on Saturday night, but they're not going to sack him. He's not going to be sacked. If what he wants is to be sacked, that is not going to happen. If he wants to leave Crystal Palace, he's going to have to walk out of the club. The message from Crystal Palace to him is, you're our manager until the summer. You get on with doing your job. In the meantime, we're working hard behind the scenes to strengthen the squad. So even if Jean-Philippe Mateta was to leave, I guarantee you it would only be for the right price, and it would only be when Palace had a replacement lined up.
Just looking at results, 10 games without a win. From the outside looking in, it does feel like a bit of a downward spiral, doesn't it, at the club? Are there concerns behind the scenes?
Yeah, of course there are. But I think people behind the scenes at Palace are realistic. They know that a month ago they beat Fulham and they were 4th in the Premier League. And everyone was talking about what a great year it had been for Crystal Palace, won their first ever trophy, won the Community Shield, were playing in Europe as well. Actually, they should be playing in the Europa League, not the Conference League, but that's another story. And you have to remember, they've lost 2 of their best players. Munoz has been injured. Ismaila Sarr has gone to AFCON, won the AFCON with Senegal. Those players are going to be back soon. Crystal Palace have just broken their transfer record to sign Brennan Johnson for £35 million. So additions are being made to the squad. I think the feeling at Crystal Palace is what Oliver Glasner has said. It's fine to say that behind closed doors, but don't say it in public because it doesn't help anyone.
OK, Kaveh, thanks so much for that. Look, here is a look at the form table then for Palace. Really concerning times for them.
Crystal Palace in the news in more ways than one at the moment, Alex. Jean-Philippe Mateta, what's going on?
Well, it's another player who wants away from Selhurst Park, and it does seem to be a case of, with the last one out, please switch off the lights at the moment, doesn't it? When you think about Mark Gay is left, obviously Eze sold to Arsenal in the summer.
How long has he got in his contract, Rookie?
He's off. Yeah, he is under contract, and that expires in 2027. But you know what it's like, Danny. It's difficult to keep an unhappy player. There's interest from Juventus, which I think quite appeals to Mateta, the chance to go and play in the Champions League. Aston Villa as well have been mentioned in the last 24 hours or so as their deal for Tammy Abraham hits a few stumbling blocks. I think a big issue here is that Mateta is not on massive money by Premier League terms at Crystal Palace, and I think he feels that by joining another team he can pretty much double his pay and obviously go and achieve those aspirations to play in a top-tier European competition in the case of Juventus. So I don't think he's put a transfer request as such, but I think his camp have made it pretty clear to Steve Parish and the Palace hierarchy that he wants out.
Oh, Simon, I mean, what can you say to events at Crystal Palace?
I don't think it's any more of the last person here to have a lights out any more than it would be for Bournemouth in terms of the players that they have had potentially leave the club and gone to bigger football clubs, and the potential that their manager may well leave at the end of the season. It's the difficulty. It's something that I don't fundamentally agree with what Martin Samuel said the other day about the challenges that await Crystal Palace as a result of winning the FA Cup. But it does lean into that the clubs that are trying to compete and win competitions that don't have the legacy, heritage and the turnover and the huge ownership models behind them to be able to bankroll whatever they feel like and having to comply with PSR as they should, are in a real difficult situation because everyone sees the vision of a manager or a player when it arrives. And Crystal Palace brought Oliver Glasner in. I think he came with a reputation, but Palace got him. Mateta couldn't hit a cow's backside with a banjo a couple of years ago. No, he couldn't.
And now all of a sudden, Glasner's got him going again, so he might want to check his neck a little bit. But Eze was bought by, the recruitment processes of Dougie Freedman. They brought good players in. And a lot of what Palace have done have built players up to a level. And of course, as always is the case, as I said yesterday, it goes back to when Kenny Sampson was flying as a left back for England. Arsenal came along and took him and part exchanged Clive Allen for him. And these situations, and over the years, the smaller clubs, the lesser than clubs, are always going to be subject to either their managers or their players being taken. And the only job they can have, and the best job that the owner of that particular club can do, and he does it most of the time, is rinse out as much as he possibly can from the deal and look for that to be reinvested alongside a manager that will develop, and the next manager will come along and develop Palace.
They're not on their own, are they? You got Brighton, you got Brentford.
But it's always been the same. It was back in the team when Palace were the team of the 80s and Venables was coming up.
Yeah.
And as soon as Venables didn't get his own way in 1980, off he went to Queen's Park Rangers.
Sure. Alex Crook joined us earlier on in the show, and we were talking about the talk of Jean-Philippe Mateta getting to the stage that he wants out of Crystal Palace. And of course, out of Crystal Palace in recent times, we've seen more than a few players now go. And Mateta, seemingly, is the latest one. He's not quite at the stage, we understand, that this lunchtime of slapping in a transfer request. But it's now being reported that the same Jean-Philippe Mateta has now told Crystal Palace that he wants to leave the club this month. So he's made it fairly clear
It's more or less
that
the same
he wants out, and he wants out now. Simon, if you're at the top of the house at Crystal Palace, and I'm pretty sure I know what's coming here, what